Sean Sewell with Engearment.com podcast. I'm super excited to have on my good friend Pat Flynn for I think the 9th or 10th time, but it's been over a year and a half since the last time we've chatted.
Wait, no, a year and a half. No way. That long?
I think
Or
so.
just a half year. I feel like it was a half year. If it's been a year and a half, that's horrible. How do we mess up that bad?
You know what? I have no idea. I think last one was March 21st of 2021.
Oh my Lanta.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, it's good to be back. And I can't believe it's been that long, Sean. Mm-hmm.
I know, it's great to have you back. I actually haven't had much in the way of guests in the last year or so. So it's nice to have you back as like the first official guest.
Oh, what an honor. Well, I will try my best not to make this the most boring conversation that your audience has ever heard.
Oh, they love hearing from you. So a little recap, if you haven't listened to Pat on the other podcast or know of Pat, father, entrepreneur, author, Chronicles of Strength is his website, constantly putting out amazing content, a brown kettlebell-based fitness, a musician, a master of theology, a Renaissance man, really.
Yeah, philosophy. I'm not a theologian. I always have to clarify that. Yeah, for sure.
Well, yeah. You have how many podcasts do you host currently?
This is an interesting question. So originally I just had the Pat Flynn show, but it was so generalist, right? We covered so many different topics of the things that I was interested in and like talking about, everything from fitness to business to philosophy. And then I realized it was probably better. I was advised by people who are smarter than I am when it comes to just having different platforms for different things. Say, yeah, you should break that up. You should create different podcasts, but that's a pain because then you have to manage a bunch of different things. So I'm like, all right, I'll just do two. So I've got my Pat Flynn show, and that's just predominantly fitness at this point. Every once in a while, we'll explore, something else that's just fun and interesting. And then I have my Philosophy for the People podcast, which I co-host with Jim Madden, and that is, of course, predominantly philosophy content. So those are the two main ones right now. Mm-hmm.
Wow, and a really good idea of breaking things up for different audiences. And was Jim Madden on as a fitness guest originally?
Yeah, so it's really funny. Jim and I, so he's a professor, and he in philosophy focuses on philosophy of mind is his area of specialty. And I was doing a lot of reading and research in that area. And so I had come across some of his work, and I'm like, this guy seems interesting. And I think I want to reach out to him. And we made a connection sort of in the philosophy world. And then it quickly came about that he himself was deeply in the kettlebell world, like especially early on with Pavel. And of course, like we started kind of freaking out about that because we're like, that's just so weird. I mean, like we must have like been swimming in the same fitness circle, but somehow our paths never crossed until many years later because of philosophy. So then, yeah, we just hit it off like right away because we had so many common interests, not just in philosophy, but fitness and martial arts. He's a very serious jiu-jitsu player. And we've just been jamming away ever since. Mm-hmm.
That's incredible. So how far back with Jim did you go back with Pavel? Because you went back quite a ways, like the youngest person to go through RKC. Is that correct?
I was at the time. I think I was at the time, which would have been 2008-ish when I did RKC. I was the youngest person to ever do it. I mean, I was like fresh in college, so I was pretty fresh as a human specimen as well at that time. So that was cool. Jim was before me, actually. We found out Jim was like, I forget exactly the timeline, but he was even doing kettlebells before I got into it, which was pretty funny. He was like early, and he never did, I think, the official certs. He was just sort of in that world, and he discovered Pavel early on, and and he's a monster in terms of he's way stronger than I am. I mean, especially with the kettlebell lifts, he's just he carries himself with a great humility, but he's savagely strong. So it's not like he couldn't have done any of the certs. It's just he just never went through with it. Mm-hmm.
Wow. It's almost 20 years in the kettlebell world for him, and for you, 15 years.
Yeah, it's crazy to think about, and how much has changed and how much has stayed the same. I mean, I entered in, I guess, when things were sort of more or less at their peak, I feel, with popularity. I mean, the certs were like 100 and 150 people, And they were a ton of fun, man. They were just super high energy.
Yeah.
Everyone was pumped to be there. Just a lot of really cool, inspiring people. I mean, I loved it. I loved the whole experience. I loved the energy, the ambiance. But then, of course, as we know, things, the good times didn't always last in that form. People parted ways, and I, even me, I sort of went my own direction. Never with any animosity towards what came behind. Just sort of my own creative projects just led me in a different direction than staying just very kind of tightly in that kettlebell world. But yeah, so those were the days, man. I don't know. Did you ever go to those like mega certs, right? Or
I think so. My first one was 2015, and I think we had 4 team leaders, and Eric Frohart was the CEO, and he was there. Pavel was not there, but I think it was Czar Horton.
Okay, so that would have been when Strong First. That would have been the Strong First cert, right?
Exactly.
Because when I went, it was still just one. It was just the RKC at the time before the old split.
Yep, I think it was 3 years into Strong First, something like that. But yeah, it's even from the 2015 to now, watching the evolution of not being as harsh, not as many repetitions, not as much of it's still a rite of passage for a lot of people. But I know when you did it, it was probably very challenging.
Oh, it was just pure hazing, most of it, right? And I don't know, some people come down on, pretty hard of like, hey, we shouldn't have diluted things, right? And other people are like, well, we want to teach people how to be coaches, not just like wantonly beat the crap out of them. I always felt like there was a balance that could be reasonably struck there. Even with things like the snatch test, does being able to perform 100 reps with a 24 kilogram in 5 minutes prove that you're a good kettlebell coach? No, of course not. But it at least shows me that you care about something, right? Because that's not something that like you can, even if you're in general good shape. And there were people at my original cert. I remember there was a guy in my team. He looked hench. He was strong, but he dropped the kettlebell on like his 10th rep. He just clearly didn't practice. He didn't take anything seriously, and so he failed. So I always thought stuff like that was good. Yeah, it doesn't prove you're a good coach, but it proves that you're invested and you're willing to care about something. And it certainly isn't going to hurt in your coaching abilities to kind of put yourself through these different trials. So yeah, that's how I think about it. Trying to find that balance of putting the pressure on, making sure that people are invested and they care. But yeah, maybe we don't need to like be aggressive or ridiculous with the hazing. I remember one of the things to do, I mean, some of it's not that bad, but it's kind of funny looking back. We had to carry our kettlebell everywhere we went, like to the bathroom, right? If we went to the bathroom, we had to like bring our kettlebells. Like you couldn't go anywhere without your kettlebells all weekend. And it's kind of funny, actually.
Yeah. So you and the kettlebell become good friends. And did you use your snatch weight to do that?
Yeah. So it was like, for me, it was a 24. So like it was me and the 24. We became the best of friends.
Bonded. Oh, yeah. Even to that point, I know we didn't take them to the bathroom, but we did carry them in the gym facility everywhere. We carry them overhead. We carry them in the rack position.
Yep.
So
yeah, and like that's good because like you're not killing anybody with that, right? But it's like, yeah, good. You get to carry kettlebell around. That's good. I'm fine with that. Yeah.
Well, you have your own certification, right? The StrongOn.
Yep.
So I love it because you went through this original system and people come to you for advice since then, and you're fantastic with great workout programming. And then when did you decide to create StrongOn?
Yeah. So part of the reason we did it is we wanted to fill what we thought was a gap, right? So a lot of people, kind of left and started competing certs. But what we did is we realized we were running we run our own business, right? And we ran pretty good size, kettlebell classes and courses, at the old Dragon Gym. I say old, it's still around. It's just I moved. I live in Wisconsin now. This is back when I lived in Pennsylvania. And we realized, hey, there's something missing here, which is like how to teach people how to coach kettlebell specifically in a group format, and how to tie that into those who want to not just become a great coach, but a great business owner. And that was sort of the aim of our certification. It originally started out being called Killing It with Kettlebells, and later we changed the name to StrongOn just to fit our overall brand. So we actually assume that you're coming to our cert, hopefully with a background already in something like RKC or SFG. Like, we want you to come into our cert, like you better know the swing and the squat and have all that stuff already down. What we want to focus on is teaching you programming from a generalist perspective for your sort of general pop audience. How do you program not just for individuals, but groups? How do you handle certain situations especially when it comes to running kettlebell classes, troubleshooting situations, things like, hey, what if you have like 13 people who are just rocking it and killing it, and then you have like 2 newcomers drop in right away? Like, how do you keep that class interesting, challenging, appropriate? Like, how do you deal with that stuff, right? Because this is real world business. And then focusing on systems, marketing. It's one thing to run awesome classes which you care about. It's another thing to get people in there and make this, ultimately a viable model. So that's what we do. We weren't aiming and still aren't aiming to be competitive, but complementary with those other, specifically just strong first these days. Mm-hmm.
No, that's fantastic. And I think it's a very underappreciated part of the education is applying it for business or for helping people, not just the typical people you might meet in a certification where fit and able-bodied, but like, how do you approach people who really need health and fitness coaching and make it palatable?
Yeah. And so, ours is always coming from the generalist philosophy. So we focus a lot on programming and program design, again, not just for individuals, but for groups. What are the mechanics of that? And when we talk about generalism, yes, strength is important, but we also want to make sure that we're building a sort of robust general physical preparedness, conditioning, mobility, hypertrophy, all of that. So how do we do that with kettlebells? How do we do it on a small scale? How do we do it on a large scale? And then what does this actually look like in the trenches? What are the different scenarios you'll face as a coach when you're teaching one-on-one, small groups, large groups? We've been through all of it for so many years. So we love to just introduce those people to those scenarios, run them through, equip them with as many tools as they can, not just so they can deliver amazing results, to their clients, but like you said, like, how do you make it not just palatable, but really fun and engaging? Especially this is something that we really try to impress upon business owners is like, when it comes to strong first, I think this is right. You often say safety and performance are not at odds. Definitely true. I don't think effectiveness and fun have to be at odds either, right? As a coach, we should want it to be both. So that's kind of what we teach at StrongOn. How do you make your programming effective, but also something that people like really going to look forward to, that's exciting, that's motivating? They'll go out and talk about it. They'll feel good afterwards. And sometimes people put these things at odds. They'll have these very kind of idealized programs that are just totally super boring, right? Especially for a group. And then there's the other side where people will have like stuff that's fun, but not really purposeful, right? It's not really driving towards any greater goal, at least with not any remarkable efficiency, right? So yeah, our philosophy is let's try and marry these two, right? We have our goals, we have our clear sort of generalist outcome that we're aiming towards. How do we get there efficiently, and how do we have fun along the way to make sure that our clients actually enjoy the process and like want to go out and talk about it and tell other people about it?
That's a great approach. I respect the heck out of it. To speak to your point, in my group classes, there's a lot of smiles, a lot of laughter, and why not? Our mutual friend Brett Jones mentions that having fun and fitness do not have to be separated,
And he's a very wise man. So yeah. I'm always happy to be in agreement with Brett. That's amazing.
Yeah. Well, and to your point with Dan John, I actually used his 30 for 30 as a blueprint for a lot of our group classes. So please tell him thank you for that.
I certainly will. Yeah.
Yeah, it's super useful, especially suitcase carries, swings, squats, and just it works.
And if I can build on that, so the 30 for 30 is like literally just 30 seconds on, 30 seconds off for 30 minutes. And this is like one of the tools we teach when it comes to group programming. It's like, hey, you can do the certain like traditional sets and rep things, but there's other things that work really well for groups, and timed workouts or on the clock workouts are really good. Why? Because people can kind of auto-regulate certain components of a workout, but everyone's still kind of staying together, which is really cool. And these are the things that you have to consider, right? Like, you don't want to program a workout that one person in the class finishes in 5 minutes and it takes another person 30 minutes. Like, what the heck do you do? Right. With like, that's a situation you don't want to wind up in.
Yeah.
And it's unfortunate, a lot of coaches don't think about it until they wind up in that situation. It's really kind of awkward. Right. But so those are the types of things we're trying to teach. Like, hey, here's a framework that's going to work well. And here's how to make sure people are like really appropriately challenged within that framework. On the clock workouts are something we teach a lot, so they can, find what's going to, help move them closer to their goal according to their abilities. But at the same time, we have this sort of communal aspect where everyone's kind of staying together. Nobody feels awkward because they're like way behind or something like that. So there's so many dynamics, as you know, Sean, because you've been a coach and a great one for a long time. There's so many dynamics that it's just like, you have to manage all of them, right? It's not just about sets and reps and volume and density. Those are important. But there's so many of those psychological elements to the coaching experience. And, you want people to feel challenged, but you also want them to feel like, not awkward, right? Especially if they're new.
Yeah.
Right. And like, these are things that good coaches should not only be aware of, but should have systems in place to manage all those different dynamics.
100% agree. Yeah. And it's fun when you get that new challenge into your class, a person totally new, welcome them in, and then creating a comfortable atmosphere and creating a regression or progression for them. I'm sure this is all in your StrongOn certification. Which, again, when did you create this? Was this 4 years ago, the first one, 4.5 years ago?
So 4.5 years ago is probably when we first switched it from Killing It to Kettlebells to StrongOn. But Killing It Kettlebells, and it was really just sort of a branding and name shift. The fundamental curriculum and philosophies stayed the same. Oh boy. When did we do the first ever search? It's been a minute. I want to say 2013 or 2014, something along those lines. So we've been, and we typically do 2 a year. Obviously, with the whole COVID situation, we switched it kind of online for a while, and that has gone actually very well. I miss in person these things. It's always, it's never the same, right? So you do the best you can when you try to teach a curriculum like this online, and you do the best you can, right? And those who went through it online did a remarkable job. But after this year, just because the rest of this year is totally booked for me, I haven't been able to schedule one but next year, probably by spring, we'll finally be back to the in-person.
Oh, fun.
Is the plan.
You know what? I really enjoy the online and hybrid version. I got to work with our friend Derek Toshner and Pavel several times, actually, at our gym here in Denver. We hosted Strong Endurance. We hosted the teacher's curriculum and Plan Strong.
Nice.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. And then Derek's up there presenting. Pavel's there. Fabio Zonin. Brett Jones was there. A lot of Jeff was there. Newport. It was
awesome. Yeah, you had that's the A team right there.
Oh yeah,
you had the super group, man.
It was awesome. It was an absolute pleasure. We went out for steaks and wine afterwards. It was nice.
And so that was hybrid. It was you guys were in person, but you had allowed people to kind of like zoom in or something like that.
100%. So what I did,
that's cool.
We hosted it at our gym, and I have I probably shouldn't before, but it's changed since then. 6 different cameras lined up, wireless microphones on Pavel and each presenter. And then we hosted it via Zoom, of course. And then we had people in person too. We probably had, 50, 60 people in person, and then about 100 online. And then we had people working the moderation just because I can't moderate while I'm doing video stuff. So, and in fact, just before our podcast, the new director from Strong First reached out to work with Pavel and myself on an upcoming event in Miami. So
nice, man. Yeah, fantastic. Yeah. All right. I'm going to have to sneak out to one of these events. It's been way too long since I've hung out with all those cool people anyway. So,
they would love to see you. Yeah. It would be so much more fun too to see you in person and, just swap stories, maybe even jam a little bit.
Is that an SG behind you that I see?
Yes, sir. Got the SG.
Good man. Right. As you know, I'm a big SG fan. Many people aren't. Yeah, you got the Gibson. I've got my Washburn here, but my SG is in the other room. And yeah, man, the SG gets a lot of hate, a lot of sort of the balance. But I'll tell you what, man, I take it over the Les Paul any day.
100%. It plays well. The tone's great. You can shred on it. I never knew I wanted one. And my wife got it for me for my birthday and Christmas, pretty much the same day, maybe 10 years ago. it's been so awesome.
And Angus Young plays an SG. So what else do you need? Right.
Exactly. We actually got to go to the Gibson garage in Nashville this summer.
Oh, you got to go, or
Yes.
you are going?
Oh,
Oh,
we went.
sweet, man.
Yeah, it was so awesome. It's actually our 10-year anniversary. And I purchased, thanks to Jeff Newport, he helped me design a ring for my wife. I got her a diamond ring with 10 little diamonds and one big one for 10 years, and then one big one for the future.
Wow.
Yeah, so when you see Jeff next time, I need to thank him.
That man is amazing in so many different ways, isn't he?
He's very creative, very thoughtful.
Yeah, I would just, of all the things that Jeff could do.
Right? Yeah. So thanks for him to plant that seed. But we went out to the Gibson garage, and it was, you would love it. It's only Gibsons and Kramers. And
yeah, because they own Kramer now, dude. I'm looking at, I almost pulled the trigger on the Bumblebee Yellow Beretta special they have. And like, yeah, man, I mean, for me and the music that I love, all my favorite guitarists in the 80s, they were all Kramer guys, right? But then Kramer died, and now Gibson is like bringing them back. So I'm like really tempted to get the Kramers that they've reissued.
Oh yeah, you would definitely appreciate it. Well, yeah, they have like stacks of Marshalls. All the guitars are just like swinging by on a line. You can pick one out and jam on them. It's pretty sweet.
That's awesome. Did you play a Kramer while you're down there?
Oh yeah, my long story is shorter. My wife said, pick one out, we'll take it home. So that'd be my 10-year anniversary present. I was like, no, they're like $3,000 plus. Like, we don't need a new guitar. The SG does totally fine.
Yep.
It's a sweet thought, very sweet thought.
Yeah, my only hesitation, and this is like me just being snobbish, is the new Kramers. I think I forget where they're made, maybe Indonesia or something. They're not, US built. So like that just makes me a little hesitant until I actually play one. But everyone tells me that they play amazing. So I just want to get my hands on one first before I pull the trigger. Yeah.
Of course. I bet you would like it. The headstocks are so unique too.
The banana headstock. Yeah. People can just look up the it's as obnoxiously yellow as my hat is the one I'm looking at. So it's just, perfect.
Oh, spot on. Well, speaking of guitars, I saw that your daughter helped you decorate your guitar.
Yeah, it's right here. Check it out. I'm surprised.
Wow.
So this not to bore your audience, this is a Washburn N4. So this is Nuno Betancourt's guitar, one of my favorite guitarists in the band Extreme. Were you ever an Extreme fan, Sean?
I was not, but I was very much appreciative of his virtuoso skills. He shreds.
Oh yeah, he's insane. He's one of those guitarists that everybody's got their guy, right? So I have like 2 or 3 guys, and your guy is like the first time you hear it. The first one for me was Angus Young from AC/DC. Like some of my earliest memories are just being in the car with my mom and her playing that Back in Black album, and me thinking, I don't know what that sound is, but I love it, and I need to be able to do it. And then I had that experience again with Nuno. The first time I played, I forget maybe it was like Warheads. Like there was an Extreme song that came on, and the guitar was so cool and so funky and so different. And again, like I don't know what that guy's doing, but I need to figure out how to do that, right? And for most people, that guy is like Van Halen, and to an extent, it was for me. But Nuno was always I think a stronger influence for me than Eddie. Mm-hmm.
Oh, interesting. And who's number 3 for you?
Oh boy, probably Marty Friedman from Megadeth.
Boom, there you go.
Yeah, it has to be Marty from Megadeth. The first time you just hear like Rust in Peace album and his playing on there, again, you're like, I don't know what that is. That it's like all those exotic scales and everything. His style is so amazingly unique. And I remember in high school, I just got like his DVD where he's sitting there with his super long curly hair playing like his Dragon Kiss songs. I just watched it over and over and over again, just trying to figure out what the heck this guy is doing, right?
100%. Yeah. Marty Friedman. Oh, so good. Yngwie Malmsteen. Really like Yngwie.
I mean, just insane, right? So to this day, I still am just in awe at Yngwie's virtuosity. I mean, the sheer ferocity. Everyone knows him for his speed, but you have to also appreciate him for the other things, like his vibrato is incredible. People kind of like poke fun at Yngwie. I don't see what there is to poke fun at. I mean, the man is just an absolute monster who again, he's like, you have these guys that are just kind of like atom bombs on the music industry. Eddie was. Eruption dropped. It just changed what it meant to be a guitar player.
Yeah.
Yngwie is another one of those guys, right? Yngwie dropped, and it's like, we didn't think this was possible before. And now this is like the standard of what it would mean to be a virtuoso guitar player. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he's bonkers. Well, your eruption I heard this week was spot on. That was incredible.
Oh, thanks, man. Yeah, just been working at it a little bit. Our band, so I'm in this local cover band. And I've been trying to get some Van Halen in, but it's got to jive with all the other members. So we've kind of like tossed a few things in and then tossed them out. But we finally settled on You Really Got Me, which is a simple enough tune. But I'm like, all right, guys, at least let me take a stab at Eruption if we're going to do You Really Got Me, because obviously comes right before it on the album, right? So finally, it's like one of those tunes where, like, as a guitarist, like I was always kind of vaguely familiar with it and like knew some licks from, what my friend showed me or I just kind of had. But then I sat down and listened to it. I'm like, oh, I'm just not playing that right at all, right? Like, it's just way off, right? In terms of dynamics. If anybody, if there's any guitar nerds, like, you really got it. You can find the isolated track on YouTube. Just slow it down. It's incredible to hear it, which is what I've been doing. And even things like just some of the first initial quick passages, Eddie's like really swinging. He's got like this incredible swing style, which is really hard to emulate. So I've been working at it. So thanks for the vote of confidence there. Mm-hmm.
Oh, it's incredible. And you're right. He's so good at different kinds of styles. The only part of that song he can do, and I probably am doing it wrong, is the finger tapping part.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah. The funny thing is about the tapping part, right, is that's actually, I think that's kind of like the easiest part of the song, right?
I agree. Yep.
But it's the hardest to play standing up, because I like to try and look cool when I hold, which means I like to try and hold my guitar really low. So,
oh yeah, yeah. I hold my, like this, and that's easier for tapping.
Yeah. I try to, like, you do the what's the guy Tom Morello from Rage Against the Machine. Looks like a total nerd with his guitar, but it makes sense to hold it up here, right? Because it's just mechanically it's easier. But I'm influenced by Nuno, and Nuno's one of those guys, like, he can hold his guitar down to his knees and play the most insane things. I'm like, how do you do that? It's just, it boggles the mind. Yeah, no kidding. Anyways, thanks for entertaining me on the music stuff. I could nerd out on that all day.
Absolutely. Yeah. and I put the portable practice amp in my shopping cart for Christmas. So
yeah, that thing is sweet. If there's any guitar players out there, check out the Black Star Fly. So it's just it's an amp that's like, I don't know how big it is. It's very small, smaller than my computer screen. It's like and it just runs on AA batteries. And most of those amps are pretty terrible, but you just accept it just because I just want something easy to practice with. But this one actually sounds good. Sounds legit good. Yeah. Uh-huh.
Sounded really, really good. Mm-hmm. Well, I'm gonna get one and take it camping and go shredding.
Yeah, we just keep ours right in the kitchen. So I've got 2 of my kids already playing guitar now, so we just like, somebody's plugged into that little thing down there almost at all times in my household, right?
Oh, that's so cool. Uh-huh. Speaking of kiddos, okay, this is a big question.
Mm-hmm.
Well, one, congratulations on the newest addition to your family.
Thank you. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. And then how do you balance time with your family with your businesses?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Well, I'm very, very fortunate that I, since I work for myself, I work from home. So I it's sort of structurally set up for me that I do spend a lot of time with my kids. The reason I might have been a little bit late for our podcast, Sean, is I just had and the reason I might seem a little bit tired is I just had a major pizza date with 2 of my daughters for lunch.
Oh,
big carb loading just happened. So yeah, I mean, so for me, in terms of work in general, I'm somebody who does well with sort of very clear set boundaries and monotony.
Oh yeah.
So my routine is extremely monotonous. Every morning I wake up and the first thing I do is I just hang out with my kids for a little bit. So Marin, our second youngest, is a super early riser. So me and her are usually down in the kitchen hanging out, eating bananas at like 5:30, and everyone else is still kind of asleep. And I make coffee and we just sit and we hang out for a little bit. I need time before I hop right into work anyways, if nothing else, just to get caffeinated. So then some of the other kids come down and I kind of like handle the kids first thing in the morning, which I like to do because it gives me time to spend with them, and you give Christina a little extra time to sleep or spend time with the baby upstairs. Then we sort of trade. Christine will come down and then I go up and I I shut the door, literally. I shut that door. For what it's worth, I'm in my master bedroom closet. This is where I'm kept in the house right now. I used to be in the basement, which is much nicer because it's a finished basement, but it's way too cold down there. It's just I just freeze. So I moved up here. And it's also like functions, as you can see, Sean, as my pseudo studio. So I've got all my recording stuff. I got if you see there, I got the little black star in the corner all mic'd up. It's a mess in here. But I come in here, I shut the door, and, for a good chunk of hours, essentially from that, when I start till about lunchtime, it's just work. It's usually writing work. And stuff, right? And I think it's really important when you're trying to be productive that you don't have distractions. And God bless my wife. She's really good at that. She's at home. She takes care of the kids. She homeschools. So I'm really able to just kind of focus, do my thing. But then, when I break for lunch, that's family time. So I spend a lot of time. Like today, I just took two of the younger kids. My wife was doing a school project with the older kids. So I took two of the young kids out for pizza. Otherwise, we'll just, we'll have lunch together and we'll hit the Nintendo Switch. We're big Mario Kart fans around here, Sean.
That's awesome.
Do a lot of Mario Kart. And Daddy does not take it easy on any of the kids on Mario Kart.
Just crushing them.
Yeah, and then what I'll typically do, and then usually I like to work out around that time as well. I'm kind of like a noonish time workout guy, maybe a little bit before late morning, early afternoon. Sometimes that's at home. Sometimes we'll just go as a family we go to the Y, so that's time to hang out too. When I come home, I usually dedicate another block of work no later than 4 p.m. And that's often dedicated to all sorts of different things that aren't writing. Writing's my primary activity throughout the day. But then I have a block of time just to get everything else done that needs to get done. And then come 4 o'clock for me, that's like it. That's like the hard stop. Now I'm shifting to just spend time with my family, kids, wife, and do all that good stuff. So, and that's just a routine, day in, day out, very monotonous. So it's specifically set up that I have those periods of, focus and productivity, but also ample time, to spend with my family. Mm-hmm.
Oh, I admire that. That's really very helpful. Mm-hmm. I've been doing better with boundaries myself and structure. And I find with the structure, it creates better opportunities to be more productive as well.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, it does. Like if you have, for productivity, some things are really key. One is eliminating distractions. And I don't just mean kids. Kids are usually the least distracting thing, honestly. I mean things like checking social media all the time, leaving extra browsers open, anything, right? Because as soon as you're doing a hard, difficult project, you sort of naturally look for distractions, because once things get difficult, you kind of want to not deal with it immediately anymore, right? But you have to. So close the browsers, leave your phone in the other room, shut the door, like compartmentalize. This is your time, and give yourself a deadline, right? That there's a sort of hard stop period, and whatever you get done up to that period is what you get done. But you have your start time, you have your stop time, and this will condition you. Like you'll become like Pavlov's doll, right? That once you're in that environment, and once it is that time, you will automatically just kind of be in that creative, productive mode. But you have to make it a routine. You have to make it a habit. Mm-hmm.
That's great advice. Follow-up question.
For sure.
Do you ever find moments where you're very creative outside those times, and how do you handle that?
Yeah, usually it's in the shower, and I try to reach for my phone, and I fall out across the toilet, and or I'm driving on the highway and space out. No, I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah, sometimes your best ideas come at the worst times, right? But jokes aside, no, I actually have an ongoing notepad on my phone where I always have it, hopefully ready to go. So that way at any time, sometimes if you have to just do like a voice recording because you're driving or something, be safe. But I think this is something that you'll learn from any creative person. I remember I forget the name of the book right now, but it was a book on writing. This writer said that they always carried sticky notes with them for this reason, that, you just get ideas, especially if you're kind of always thinking about what's going to happen in your story. You never know when a good idea is going to pop up. And last thing you want to happen is for a good idea to pop up and then you lose it. It's gone. and it's gone forever because you didn't write it down. So always having some sort of capture device around. For me, it's just Notepad on my phone is the simplest, but people use sticky notes, voice recorders, anything. So yeah, I recommend doing that. Mm-hmm.
That's very good advice. Yeah. Oh, that's very helpful. About content creation.
Mm-hmm.
If people are, most people know who you are. You put out content consistently that is very helpful. Do you batch it and then automate it, or do you like 9 a.m. I'm going to put up this kettlebell information?
Yeah, most of my content is live. But I don't know if that's a helpful answer, so we should just go through it kind of bit by bit. Some of my content is automated. So like if you come into my circle, the world of Pat Flynn, and say you get on my email list or whatever, you'll get a few emails and stuff that were cooked a while ago, and I think are very fun and useful and interesting because they kind of like help introduce you to my world of where all the things that might help you are. So, but for the most part, if you're on my email list, for example, what you are reading from me was written by me that morning. Right?
I love it. Yeah.
And I think there's a dynamic to that just can't be emulated. Right. And I like doing it. I like getting things out while they're fresh. Right. Mm-hmm. I also have a blog, a Substack. That's mostly philosophy. Again, what you read on there is something that usually came about that morning or the night before. On the podcast, it's fresh because a lot of it's live streamed, right? So that's being made on the spot. Books are obviously different, right? Books you work out over a long haul. And my next book is due October 1st. So I'm in like big crunch time right now. And on that, but I'll just put the whole book thing to one side because to me, that's like an entirely different category of entirely different animal. But no, most of the stuff, here's the thing about writing. It's so much easier to write when you're excited about something. And it's almost impossible to write. I don't care how good you are, how long you've been in the game. People ask me about writer's block. Pat, how do you not seem to get writer's block? And the answer is because I don't get writer's block because I never have to write about something that bores me that I don't care about. If you have me write about fertilizer, I wouldn't have anything to say. Now, some people might be interested in that, and that's awesome. I at the current moment am not, and there's a lot of things that I'm not just interested in, and I would struggle as bad as anybody struggles if I had to write about things that just are not like really interesting to me. So I have the advantage of essentially only having to write about the things that really do interest me, and the questions that are at the top of my mind already, or the things that I'm already thinking about, the things that I already have, I think, a lot to say on. So that's always been my advice. I think if you're not just interested in something, but you're always researching it. That's the other thing. You can't just be interested and passionate about something. You have to be reading about it a ton and a ton and a ton. And if you have that combination of a sort of insatiable curiosity for something where you're just constantly trying to go deeper and deeper, and a great passion for it, you'll tend to just be a geyser. You'll just be able to spurt content out. Doesn't mean it'll always be great, but that's what editing is for, right?
Oh, that's super helpful. And I love that you do that live. I can get that feeling from the content. It's like, oh, this is what I'm feeling right now. I'm going to put it out today. Much like you, that's how I operate too. I may batch some videos. I'll go to the mountains and shoot videos, and then I'll watch the videos and get really excited about it, and then I'll write the article.
Yeah, I mean, it's like us talking about SGs and Eddie Van Halen. Like, we could talk about this and create content around this for the next 10 years because I'm not just so interested in it, but I've spent so many years looking into it and studying it. It'd be hard. It'd be hard to. It's not that you don't have enough to say. It's just I have too much to say, and I don't know how to organize it. That's the difficulty. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, that's super helpful. You probably know the Engearment team. We have 45 writers, and sometimes they have that question, like, how do you stay excited about something? And often I tell them, when you first worked on this project or wanted to work on it and you're researching, what was the excitement? How did you feel? Just tap back into that, and usually works.
Yeah, that's great. And, problems are exciting, right? What are you trying to solve right now? What's the problem? Have a problem. You need a problem to work on. right? And the truth is, if you're always trying to get better at something, you should always have a problem.
Mm-hmm.
There should always be a problem, and your excitement can kind of come from that problem. Problems are opportunities, I see, for greater growth and adventure. And I think people kind of, I don't know, get bored or whatever because I guess they stopped trying to grow and they didn't have as many problems that kept them excited. To me, it's just all about problems, trying to solve problems. Mm-hmm.
I like that reframing. That's really good. And,
Mm-hmm.
that is a lot of what we get to do in our world is we see something, what would make this better, or how can we teach people how to make this better?
Mm-hmm.
Boom, problems solved.
Yeah. And even for fitness, the problem isn't always like, how do I get a bigger press? Sometimes the problem is, how do I keep the press I have right now, or that I had when I only had one kid, when I have 5 kids, right? That's it's a great problem to think about, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, this is great, Pat. Well, we covered a whole lot of topics in the last 45 minutes.
Indeed.
Yeah, we always do, and it always flies by, and I'll be respectful of your time.
Oh, happy to jam for as long as you want, my friend. Mm-hmm.
That's awesome. And listeners out there, yes, I have lost my voice, and that is why it sounds the way it does. But I saved it up because I want to talk with Pat. So, an absolute pleasure, Pat. Thank you for sharing your insights on creativity, balancing work-life balance with a very large family, the structure you implement in your day that allows you to create the awesome content that you create and help all the people you help. It's always fun talking with you and learning how you operate and how you operate in the world, make it a better place.
Thank you, Sean. Always a pleasure. And let's make sure that it happens again way sooner than 1.5 years from now. That's just unacceptable. Mm-hmm.
Agreed. Yeah, I looked at him like, oh my God, it was 1.5 years. It used to be every 3 months or so. So I'll make it happen.
Yeah, good stuff. And I hope your listeners got a little something out of it. Always a pleasure. Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Pat. And I'll put links below where you can find Pat Flynn on social media, Chronicles of Strength, and his books as well on Amazon. And I'm Sean Sewell with Engearment.com podcast. Until next time, take care.